everybody, I'm Flux Ascension and I play Rhianwyn Halcyne, or Rhea for short, in the final chorus, the current campaign that the Phoenix Gaming Guild is streaming on Friday nights. Be sure to rejoin us after this recap at 7:30 p.m. Eastern on Friday. Now let me catch you up on session 15. The party stepped into the water arena at midnight to find 4 robes waiting for them. 4 robes for 4 new initiates of the Hidden Circle. Demo, they were told, had already been welcomed in. The voice promised glory and the ability to create battle songs. Each party member donned their robes, except for Rhea. Voshk's was too tight. Leon put on Rune's robe, which fit perfectly, and Rune put on Leon's robe, which also fit perfectly. Rhea was very skeptical, and the voice had to prod her again to put the robe on. She begrudgingly did as asked and was swallowed by a tent of a robe. The voice laid out the trials. Rune was to leave a portrait of himself on the dean's desk with his signature and a heart. Voshk was to transform into a sheep during his next class and remain perfectly silent. Leon was to challenge the new swordsmith instructor to an ancient high-throne tradition called the 10-finger duel, also known as a tickle duel. And Rhea was to deliberately fail a quiz, because the circle was only willing to recruit those who could sacrifice perfection. Rhea dropped her robe on the ground and walked out, unwilling to fail on purpose. The voice above the arena panicked, muttered, "I've been made," and Derek came sprinting through the bleachers before teleporting himself away. The rest of the party also dropped their robes and followed Rhea. On the ferry back to the dorms, they noticed students laughing and pointing at them. Each of them had the word loser inked on the back of their neck, presumably from some enchantment upon the robes. They came home to the sound of Demo laughing on the couch, with someone they could not see. Leon grabbed Demo and threw him against the wall. Voshk fished canvas out of the couch cushions and unrolled it, and inside stood a very young halfling in a very nice office, looking just a bit sheepish. It was Donis, or the image of him, painted sometime around the founding of High Throne. The whole prank had been his idea. Demo had been his agent, and Derek joined in and immediately fumbled the bag by asking Rhea to fail a class, which was the one thing Donis had told him not to do. Lots of chatter and questions. Vosh asking if he is waterproof made Rhea suggest that maybe they could lower him into the Drow's water portal to take a look around. Donis did not like this suggestion, and so he asked Demo to show him another painting in their dorm. He then made his way far from the party in one of the landscapes. Having lost their new portrait-bound friend, the party decided to reach out to Professor Delmore in the morning. Demo, having spent the last 24 hours poking Rune with every rock and mineral joke he could find, Rune answered by asking Leon to spar with him in the yard, and then using that as an excuse to hit something Demo-shaped. Demo took the beating and kept talking away anyway. The next morning, the party went looking for Professor Delmore in Frostmere, on the theory that Rhea's after-hours tutor might have some insight on the Drow and the water portal. They found Professor Delmore holding hands with Derek crossing the bridge in Frostmere. Rhea introduced Voshk, and Delmore, who had apparently been the biology instructor before teaching advanced magic classes, took one look at him and started a full-on inspection right there in the middle of the crowd on the bridge. Teeth, tongue, eyes, scales. She read him as being roughly 7-year-old. Although the party knows that Voshk is actually 55. Whether this is another wrinkle tied up with the entity attached to him or a natural part of his species is still up for debate. Rune stayed behind after Delmore left and tried to raise the missing students issue directly with Derek. It went badly enough that Derek froze time to correct Rune. In the frozen moment, Derek admitted that the crown jewels had been coming to him privately for the past year, that most of them opposed the crown from the inside, and that he was already tracking the disappearances himself. When the party returned to the dorm that evening, Donis began moving between the paintings in the dorm and made a very slow tour of every framed image in the house. He stopped in one of Rune's book covers and criticized him for not having anything on his walls. He hopped into the frame of Leon's family, made up names for Leon's parents, messed with his family dogs, and then got told very directly to leave. Then he stepped into one of Rhea's Feywild landscapes and sat down for a conversation. Rhea gave him the specifics of the time she had tried to attune to his gauntlet. His soul had held on to the attunement for all this time, and he had kicked her out before she could even say a word. Donish pushed her. If she wanted to attune, she had to be more like him, less careful, less contained, less certain that every situation needed to be observed before it could be entered. So, he gave her a rock joke as ammunition to use on Rune before he left. Later on, Donis was still touring around the house inside the paintings, complaining about being bored. He asked more than once whether any of them had drugs, and Vosh, on a whim, pulled out a paint set and painted a small plant into one of the framed landscapes. Donis reached over and pulled some off and was able to smoke it. The dorm shortly smelled of it. Rhea, deciding that Donis needed a taste of his own medicine, painted him a cup of Feywild Bloom tea. Donis made a comment that, well, the tea is nice, this is not the time, but drank it anyway. And shortly after the first sip, Donis left in a hurry, stumbling into a different painting. That night, the party decided it was time to make their move on the portal. Rhea tied the invisible rope to herself, waded in, and let the rest of the party wait by the shore with the instructions that she would send them a message once she saw what was on the other side. Then she went through. She surfaced in a pond in a beautiful garden in front of a manor she did not recognize, in daylight that shouldn't have been there for someone who had just gone under at night. Standing at the edge of the pond was a small girl in a very expensive dress. She introduced herself as Lilac. Rhea asked where they were, and Lilac told her, albeit too cheerfully, that her father could not go to High Throne because the king would not allow it. When Rhea asked why, Lilac explained that her mother had disagreed with the king and that her father killed her mother for it. Then Lilac announced she was going to tell her father about the woman in the pond if she did not take Lilac to High Throne immediately. Rhea should have sent her sending spell in the first 10 seconds. She had it prepared, and she got distracted. Back on the shore, Leon was watching the rope go slack in his hands. It snapped clean. He dove in without a plan. The other three followed, and when they reached the spot where the portal had been, they found themselves standing on an invisible barrier. The rope pressed flat against it, and the water above and below untouched. They turned around. Silas was standing on the shore behind them, watching. He asked what the heck they had done, and in the garden beyond, Lilac started to scream. Find out what happens next when we rise next week. We are the Phoenix Gaming Guild. This is the final chorus. See you at the table.